Whatever is the outcome, you can't really control it. The only thing that you can control is yourself and how you receive it and your emotions. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Naz, for those of you guys who don't know me. And my channel is all about simple living and also natural alternative for health, beauty, and mindsets. Today's video is targeting the mindset aspect of my channel. This is actually a video that I wanted to do for the longest time. It's going to be almost a year now that I'm making YouTube videos, that I have a YouTube channel. And I initially created my YouTube channel to really talk about mindsets, mental issues, or actually mental health. I'd rather say mental health than mental issues. And talk about nutrition and etc. I guess talking about mental health is really hard for me, just because it's still something that I'm trying to figure out. And I'm a person that usually, when I don't have something under control, I just keep it to myself until I know exactly what I'm talking about. But when it comes to mental health, I'm just realizing now it's not something that you figure out. It's really something that you just continue to go throughout your whole life. Long story short, I live with anxiety disorder. And for those of you guys who don't know what is anxiety disorder is, first of all, anxiety, depression, feeling sad, and all those emotions are completely natural. Everybody experiences those emotions in their life on a daily basis even. But when it becomes a disorder is when basically, without having like a moment that will trigger it, you will still feel this emotion. Just so you know, this video is going to talk about my story, my anxiety, how I was able to deal with it, how am I still dealing with it, and alhamdulillah, I came such a long way. And the reason why after 8 months, almost 8 months of YouTube, I think more than that actually, we're October now, so 10 months of doing YouTube, why I finally decided to make this video is because the past week was pretty tough. I was starting to experience feelings that I didn't really feel for almost 3 years now. I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder in 2016. Bear in mind that it's not really something that you completely get rid of it, but it gets better with time. But this past week was really tough and nothing really happened in my life. My life is still the same, but I was feeling anxiety, borderline depressed. And that's why I'm like, you know what? This is a big part of your life. This is a big part of the person you are today. And instead of sharing all the time like makeup videos or cooking videos or whatnot, why not talk about mental health? And I'm from the Somali community, and mental health is not really something that we talk about. And every time someone comes out and say, oh, I think I have mental issues, you will always have a parent or someone telling you that it's all in your mind, it's waswas the shaitan, and just don't think about it. Everything will be fine. Or some people will even tell you you're just crazy, or they will tell you that you have low iman. Anxiety is actually something that is completely part of our religion. It is an emotion that God created, and it should not be something wrong just because you don't feel comfortable talking about that subject. Anywho, today I'm talking about my story. I have everything down here because I just want to, stay focused and not just talk for like hours and hours. So my story. So in 2016, February 2016, I always mention that date because that's when I hit rock bottom basically. In 2016, I experienced what we call burnout, and burnout is something that can trigger or something that can cause anxiety disorder or even depression. So basically what happened to me is that one day I was just not able to leave my bed. I was legit not able to leave my bed. Every time that I would even sit on my bed, I will feel dizzy, sick, and I would feel that my head was just too heavy for me. I truly didn't know what was happening to me. We don't really talk about mental issues or mental health in my community. I didn't grow up talking about that. I didn't even believe in it, to be honest. So obviously I went to see my doctor. He referred me to almost 9 specialists. I thought I had kidney problems. I thought I had problems with my iron. Anyways, they did a lot of tests and all the tests came out negative. So I was completely fine physically. And then I was like, okay, so what's going on? What's going on with me? I'm not able to stand up. I'm not able to go to work. I'm not able to go to school. What is happening to me? And I don't know. And then I maybe that also triggered more my anxiety because I was just crying all the time. I remember waking up in the middle of the night. Well, waking up, that's even if I was sleeping, to be honest. I was barely sleeping. I was always, my mind would always be thinking about random stuff at night. So, and I would just sit on my bed and cry and not really know what I was crying about, you know? Well, obviously I was sad because I felt sick and I felt like nobody was understanding me. I felt really alone. And I remember back then I was sharing, well, growing up actually, I was always sharing my room with my sister. And I remember her, she was like just sitting on the side of the room, and you know, I'm like, how did she do that? Like, I mean, my life is not really different from hers, but she's still able to sleep at night. Why am I not able to sleep at night? It was really tough. And all my friends, I just basically just cut everybody off. My friends, some of them were really actually mad at me because back then, that's also when I met my husband. They thought that I was just like, you know, I met the love of my life, so you know, they were not important anymore. So I was not seeing my friends. My husband actually, I think back then that's when we were dating. So I think that's what brought us closer. He was not really understanding what was happening to me, but he was there for me. And we met in December 2015, and I was just all over the place in February 2016. So when all of this was happening, I only knew him for 3 months. Anywho, that's another story. So basically that's what's happening in my life. And on top of that, my skin started to react. I don't know if you've seen other videos on my channel where I'm basically talking about like natural products, skincare routines, and etc. It's because my skin really came a long way. When I was having burnout, my skin also started deteriorating. I had rashes, redness, I had rosacea, and it came out of nowhere. And so not only I was sick, my face was like, you couldn't even look at me. Like my face was really red. I will put like a picture of my face on this side of the screen so you can see what I looked like. I always had sunburns. I mean, like, I was a complete mess. And I was, on top of that, I was gaining a lot of weight. I gained 20 kilograms. So I went from 65 kilograms to 85 in a matter of 3 months. So it was really tough. Anywho, so 6 months before that, 6 months before this depression, this burnout, just to show you how God make things really beautiful, like things will just fall in place in your life. 6 months before that, back then, I didn't even met my husband yet. I was just doing my things, right? I saw an experience that they were doing at school, and they were looking for people that live with anxiety or depression. But they didn't say anxiety or depression because otherwise I would never register for that. They said, are you a person that worries a lot? Are you a person that is always anxious? And to be honest, I was just curious about that experience. I'm like, let me see if I'm a person that worries a lot, because I know that about myself. I thought that it was my personality, that I would always worry about everything, but maybe it was just something that, you know, you could change. So I signed up 6 months before, and then they asked me a series of questions, and then I was qualified to go through that therapy, basically. And so that's 6 months before. And now in February 2016, my life is a whole mess. And then they contact me. And then they're like, yeah, so we have your name in our list and we want you to come and start the therapy. I'm like, okay, why not? Maybe this will actually help me. I really need to talk to someone, a professional person, and this is free, so why not? So then I met with this therapist. He was a guy. Guys, can you believe he was a guy? And I never really opened to nobody. And now I'm supposed to open to a guy. Anyway, so the first day we met, I remember he introduced himself, and then he was really kind, and then he asked me, how do you feel about all of this? I told him I don't mind talking about how I feel to people. I don't see that as a issue, but it's just weird talking to a guy. And then he laughed and he was like, yeah, it's not really common to see a guy therapist, but anywho. And then we started talking, and then he was like, okay, so what do you want to talk about? And then I remember one thing that will always stick with me. I told him, well, you know, my upbringing was pretty tough. You know, like everybody's experienced trials in life, and I think everything that I went through growing up is just coming out now. And then I start talking about what happened to me when I was young, blah, 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 blah. Guys, nothing happened to me. It's just that, you know, there's like, you go through things growing up. So, and then he just stopped me. He's like, wait, we're not here to talk about what happened to you in your past. We're here to talk about the present, how you feel, and how we can change your behavior so that the future is better. That's really in my mind till today. Basically, their approach was, whatever happens to you in your life, and I'm talking to all of you guys, regardless if it's like a trauma or anything, that should not define your future. And that's what I understood. It really clicked with me, and I was like, this is true. Like, why do we think of therapy as something where you go and then you talk about your life and then blah blah blah, and then you don't talk about how you feel now and how you can adjust your feelings to have a better future? That was amazing to hear. And then basically the type of therapy that I was going through is called CBT. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's basically they're trying to see if it's possible to cure someone that lives with anxiety disorder and depression without medication, basically. And that's all I wanted, because I didn't want to take any medication. I really want to just, you know, deal with it myself. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So first of all, my burnout. So I had a burnout because I was full-time at school. I was also working in a call center, and call centers are known for anxiety and depression. It's pretty like a toxic environment. And it was really hard for me. So I was doing full-time a master's degree. I was working in a call center. I was also working out. And you know, back then I was living with my siblings, and I was the one cooking and cleaning. So it was really just a lot to deal with. And I'm a person that always push herself. So I used to just numb my feelings and just push it through, and not even, you know, just disregard whatever I was feeling. And that basically resulted with sleepless nights. So I was not able to recharge my body to face basically my busy schedule. And also one other thing that you need to know is from age 12 to age 25, I thought that I had asthma. But I was actually living with hyperventilation. And hyperventilation is basically the result of a panic attack. So every time I would feel anxious or whatever, I would just breathe really hard and my head would be spinning. And then I saw my doctor, and my doctor basically told me that I might have asthma. So I was taking, you know, the puffer, but that really didn't help. But anyway, so I was living with hyperventilation for the longest time. But now I know that basically hyperventilation is a result of panic attack, that is also a result of having an anxiety disorder. So the whole purpose of the therapy was for me to overcome my mental and behavioral pattern. The whole purpose of the therapy was for me to change the way I think, to change the way I see stuff. Because it's all about perspective in life, you know. You will see some people reacting differently to the same situation. So it's really how you react and how you train your brain. So if you're someone that always think negative, that is always thinking about the worst case scenario, then that's how your brain is trained to think. So you will always think like that. And the purpose of the therapy is basically to change my thoughts so that my emotions will be also changed and the way I behave will also be impacted. So it's a really interesting type of therapy. The first thing that I was doing is my therapist told me to write down my thoughts in a journal every night. When he told me that, I was like, yeah, I don't think I have time for that. But I still did it. The purpose of that step is for you to recognize what you're thinking, because sometimes we're not really aware of our thoughts and we're just a victim of our own thoughts. And sometimes we can be thinking really negatively and we're just not aware of it. We just don't know that we're thinking this negative, and it's really coming from us. And then we will start feeling emotions that are also negative because everything that we're thinking is negative, right? And then we will behave accordingly. So the first thing was for me to write down my emotions and just to come see him the next morning and read out loud how I was feeling. I was learning to recognize my thoughts. And then the second step was to write down my beliefs and look for exception, basically. I would tell him, okay, this is happening in my life. I'm not sure what I can do about it. So he will tell me, write down what you think it's gonna happen, live the situation, and then write down what actually happened. And that is really powerful, because the more I was doing that, the more I noticed that it was really just me making up really negative outcomes, when the reality is completely different. You can't really plan the future, you can't really predict the future. But in my mind, because my brain was trained to think always negative, I would always think about the worst case scenario. For example, if I'm passing an exam tomorrow and then I have so many other things to do, in my brain I'm like, yeah, you're gonna fail the exam, you're not good enough, you're doing all of this for nothing, you're just a failure, basically. And then I would pass the exam, do my best, and then I would have an okay result. And then by writing all of those things, you realize that what you think that's gonna happen is most of the time never happens. It's really just you thinking about the worst case scenario. And you end up learning that regardless, even if it doesn't happen like you plan, or even if it happens like you plan, life continues. And it's not the end of the world. Basically, you just learn that you can't really change the world. You can't really predict what's gonna happen in your life. The only thing you can really change is your perspective of life, the way you see your life, the way you accept and welcome experience, and etc. So that was also really amazing, because you also, not only you learn to recognize your thoughts, you also learn to accept whatever is happening. And that's really a huge step for someone that have anxiety. So that also really helped me. I also learned that often enough, we look for problems when there's actually no problems. You will just make it up in your mind. So the fourth step of the CBT was to learn relaxation method, so coping mechanism. So he would tell me to relax and to meditate. Of course, I'm Muslim and I was always praying throughout my whole life. So what I would do is every prayer, I would really sit down and talk to God, basically, because that's what I believe in, right? You just need to have something that you believe in, and just stick with that. So I would sit down. Sometimes I would wake up for Salat al-Layl and just pray and then just make dua, and not really just make dua in Arabic. I would literally just talk to God. I would confess. I would just talk to God as if God was just in front of me. And that's really, God is always listening to you, right? So I remember just sitting down in the middle of the night, crying, sometimes saying, why is this happening to me? And then praying, and just, I don't know, you just feel so much better at the end because you feel like you're heard, you feel like you're not alone. And that really shows you the power also of beliefs and prayers, right? So that's one thing that I was doing, and I would also practice breathing exercise. So you can actually, I'll try to put a link on a video in the description box. You can check it out. It's basically breathing with your stomach, and it helps with hyperventilation. So I learned about that, and then I learned to separate my thoughts from myself. So if I would have dark thoughts, because when you live with anxiety, you will legit have like just flashes of like dark thoughts. I would just separate myself from that, and I would just, sometimes I would imagine me basically beating the hell out of my dark thoughts, and that will really empower me, and I will feel better at the end. And so that's, yeah, so you also need to, every time you have this dark thought, just first of all, recognize that it's okay. Whatever it's gonna happen will happen. You just have to do your best. And also dissociate yourself from the thoughts. Because in our religion, we call it waswasa shaitan. And I would just think about it as the just waswasa shaitan, and just cut it off and say this nonsense and bring back myself to reality. And then the other thing that I learned about this therapy is you really never change until you take actions. So every thing that would bring me anxiety, I used to just cut it off and stay away. In this therapy, you're supposed to face your anxiety. So I would just face the situation, and the outcome is whatever it is, but it's okay. I'm still gonna survive at the end. I'm still gonna be there, breathing, talking, and having all of those crazy emotions. So that was really it. This video is already too long. All of this to tell you guys that it's okay to feel a certain way, and emotions don't come out of nowhere. They are created from our experience, what we went through in our life, and the only thing you have control over is you and the way you take the experience and your perspective in life. So always just step back when you have bad thoughts or negative thoughts, and just tell yourself that this doesn't make any sense. And also practice gratitude. Instead of always complaining, always think about whatever is in your life that is positive. Simple stuff. Even if you think that you have nothing in life, start acknowledging small little stuff, like just the fact that you're able to talk, to breathe, the fact that you're still living and you still have so much stuff to experience in life. And most of all, acknowledge that this is your life, and whatever is the outcome, you can't really control it. The only thing that you can control is yourself and how you receive it, and your emotions. So this is the end of this video, guys. This video is really to share with you guys my experience, and tell you, and also make you realize that if you're living with anxiety or depression, that there's help out there, that you should not live that by yourself, then you should speak up. And now, just to let you guys know, I'm really feeling better. I'm able, you know, when you know what you have, it's easier to deal with. So now, even though the past week was really tough for me, I know that it's really just my anxiety kicking in, and I know what to do. I know that I have to sit down, acknowledge it, and just to breathe and to, you know, just change my perspective. And it's, you know, it's a learning process. So yeah, so that's really what I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If this is a type of video that you enjoy, make sure you let me know in a comment, and let me know also what you would want me to talk about in my next video. And yeah, make sure you also subscribe and support. Share this video with as much people as you know, just to let them know that, you know, they're not alone. And yeah, we will see each other next week, guys.